Today we're looking at Psalm 103, one well known to the church. You'll hear it in Psalms, you'll hear it in songs, you'll hear it in the service. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all of his benefits. We have to remember that our God is a God who benefits. Our God is a rewarder God. It isn't just obey, obey, obey. He is a rewarder of those who seek him, who forgives all thine iniquities and who heals all thine diseases. He's the one who forgives iniquities. He forgives your sins, who redeems life from destruction. He crowns thee with loving kindness and tender mercies. We do not have other gods that have loving kindness and tender mercies. He satisfies with good things, so that thy youth is renewed like the eagle. So you are renewed by this God. He wants to renew you. His laws and his statutes are not there just, hey, because I said so, because I'm God, because I'm the authority. These are ways of renewal. The things that you eat, how you live, your sexual practices, how you treat one another, your marketplace, your economics, the family, the household, the governmental understandings, the kingship. All these things are there to renew. The Lord executes righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. He makes his ways known unto Moses, his acts unto the children of Israel. So he does not hide in clouds. He has made known who he is. He's merciful and gracious. He will not always chide, neither will he keep his anger forever. That's something that when he is chastening us, he will not do it forever. And we keep on reading this more and more. He talks about, as a father pitieth his children, so the Lord pitieth them that fear him. He isn't just a taskmaster. He is a father who pities his children, but he also will chasten. The things you're doing are wrong. The things you're doing are hurtful to you. The things you're doing are an abomination to me and my name. If you're going to carry my name, you carry that with a certain amount of privilege, but also responsibility. Holding someone else's name, you have an identity responsibility there. For man, his days are as grass, as a flower in the field, so he flourished. For the wind passes over it, and it is gone. Reminding us of really where we are. Reminding us of our temporalness, of how we are just mortal, how he is immortal. I like that he remembers that we are just dust. It doesn't say that here, but in other places. That he pities man. He pities man. I was using a little King James there. He pities man. He sees that when man is trying. He sees when man is failing. But he also holds men accountable for our actions. It says, you begin this psalm talking about God. You start looking at his nature of who he is and who we are. And at the end, you go back to looking at him. Bless the Lord, ye his angels, and excel in strength, that do his commandments. Bless the Lord, all ye hosts, and ye ministers that do his pleasures. Bless the Lord, all his works in the places of his dominion. We have gone from local to personal to now eternal, now heavenly, anything that's his dominion, that bless the Lord. So again, we're blessed in the Lord in certain places and in certain ways. So look this over and see what it's really saying about who you are and who God is. And it's really some good stuff here. I always find that the Psalms help me most with perspective of not thinking too lowly of myself. I'm just a miserable sinner and I'm always failing, or too highly. I'm always this and I deserve this and you need to give me this. I like that even keel, that stoicness of understanding who he is and who I am. And the Psalms are really good about that. We're looking at the book of Ruth today. And this is a story that's, again, around the time of Samuel, or actually just maybe before. This, according to the end of the book of Ruth, this is David's great-great-great-grandmother. So the idea that it wasn't his mother, it wasn't his great-grandmother, it was his great-grandmother. Maybe I said one too many greats there. Because his father was Jesse, and Obed would have been his grandfather, and Boaz would have been his great-grandfather. So it's great-grandfather. So we still have this connection. It's possible that maybe Ruth knew of David. But certainly it's very possible that Jesse knew of Ruth, and Jesse would have told this story, plus the whole family would have known this story. This would have been a bedrock story for the family of David, and it's in here to show us the connections. Show us how wonderful God is in connecting Judah to David through this wonderful woman, Ruth. We see that there was a time when from Bethlehem, Judah, remember we're talking about there was a couple of different Bethlehems, and this one was in Judah. that Bethlehem, that a man was there named Abimelech. He had a wife named Naomi. He had a son named Mahlon and Chilion. And Mahlon and Chilion married two women. One was named Orpah and the other one was named Ruth. There was a famine, there was struggle, so they left and went to Moab. First they went to Moab, then the boys married Moabites. So they married the women after they got to Moab. And so they were living there for a while. Then they lived there 10 years and all the men died. Now Naomi is in distress and she's got these two daughter-in-laws. So she's figuring, well, I know that there's bread. I'm hearing that there's bread in Judah, so let's go back there. But she tells the women they don't have to go with her. Go back to your own families, and you can find respite there. You can find help there. Maybe you'll find another husband there. I mean, I can't provide you any more husbands. So the idea is that she's doing this also for these girls. Orpah kisses her and goes off, but Ruth says, I will stay with you, and your life is my life. But she also says something beautiful here. She says, your God will become my God. So the idea is that she's not just taking on this for Naomi, she's accepting the Jehovah, that Jehovah would be her God. So here she is going with Naomi. So they go on to Bethlehem. And right now they don't know where they're going. I mean, they don't know who to talk to. They know they have some land there. You find out later that Abimelech has some land, that the boys had land there, but maybe they had no resources to work that land. Maybe they had nothing to where they could get that going. You get the idea that Naomi is also an older woman and that maybe she even has health issues. We see later that she's living in the city, but she sends Ruth out to go and pretty much beg. Remember that they had set up the gleaning laws. The idea is that when you did an area, you left the sides for the poor. So the poor could come in and take from the sides. So what normally happened would be the people would go through and get the barley or the corn or the grain, and then they would move out, and then the poor would move in and take. Sometimes they would not be too close. So the idea was for her to go out gleaning, her to go out and get resources, get food, and maybe they could take some of that and sell it, but the idea that this was a hard life. You're out there picking this stuff up and putting it into a basket and carrying it back. We also don't know if she did this every day. You get the idea that maybe she picked certain days and then go back and either sell or make bread for Naomi, take care of whatever she needed to do with her, and then come back. So it may or may not have been an everyday thing. Or maybe it was just in the mornings and she took care of what she needed to do in the afternoons, that kind of thing. So she goes into this area and she happens to, quite by accident, go to the field of Boaz. Now remember, this was before there were any kings. There was nobody telling men how to live their lives. And some people were not living their lives by the statutes of God exactly. You know, I mean, you could see some households, and Boaz would have been a household. He seems to be a good man who follows the ways of Jehovah, but we can't guarantee that every group would do that because men were still doing what was right in their own eyes. There could have been dangerous households for Ruth. There could have been households that would have beat her, households that would have abused her, households that might have enslaved her. It was dangerous for her to just go and pick a random field. She did kind of take her life in her own hands that day. But God was good and sent her to the house and sent her to the field of Boaz. Boaz asked who she is. Here's this damsel, and you get the idea from the word damsel. She could have been anywhere. I mean, just because they were in Moab for 10 years doesn't mean they married the women right off the bat. She could have been anywhere from 17 to 25 in that area, still a young woman. And maybe she was little of frame, so she would have looked younger, so the word damsel fits. So he asked about her, and they tell her that this is Ruth, and her reputation has preceded her. He's heard about Naomi. He knows about what's going on here. He's well known, and she's well known, so he sets up protection for her. Tells her that she can go and drink water that the men are providing. She can go and go into the house or go into the household area. They weren't going to chase her away. And so he tells her that you can reap with the young men, and I have told the young men not to chase you away. You get the idea that sometimes these men may have chased away, some of the people who were getting in the way, or some people trying to steal or whatever, take more than they should, and they would chase them away. But I've told the young men to leave you alone. Let you just pick what you need. He even goes as far to say is that he tells the young men to drop some on purpose. Leave some of the sheaves for her. In fact, he gave her the right to pick among the young men. So it wasn't like the young men, the people were out here and here comes the poor to pick up. She was able to pick beside them. And she was able to drink with them. She was able to eat with them. He even invites her to come and eat bread. And she's very humble here. She is not saying, well, of course I am. Don't you know who I am? Or she's not lifting herself up in pride. She's very humble and thankful for what Boaz is doing. And Boaz is showing godly loving kindness to her. And this is actually a very beautiful romance. This tells us, if we will read these, this tells us what masculinity, what femininity really is, what masculine frame is, what feminine frame is. That's so confused these days. We don't know what's being a man and don't know what's being a woman. Well, read the book of Ruth. Read it 2 or 3 times. Put yourself in Boaz's shoes. Or women, put yourself in Ruth's shoes. But here, he protects her. He provides for her. And then he goes on. And he understands where she's from. And what's going on. That Naomi was the wife of Abimelech. That he did have 2 sons. He even knew their names. That they were a part of the family who had gone off. We get that later on. I'm drawing a little bit of the story. It's hard not to tell the story in its entirety once I've read it. And so she has a meal with him, and she goes and picks with him and gets her sustenance through him. She gleans from the fields. She beats it out in that area and either takes it back for bread or takes it back to self. Her mother-in-law is living in the city. So she must be living in Bethlehem. He must be living out in the outskirts. She goes and tells Naomi everything that's going on. And Naomi blesses God for what's happening here. Now, she is a Moabitess. Now, she is, the law allows people to be kind to Moab. I mean, for Israel to be kind to Moab. So here it would be okay for a union to happen here. But there's certain situations. There's a certain cultural understanding, a methodology that needs to go through, and Naomi understands this. You almost get the idea that what happens next, Naomi did with Abimelech, that there was a cultural understanding. This is not male superiority over, this is not dominance, this is not that kind of thing. He is to dominate the land, but not dominate her. His idea is to control the household, control the economy, control the security, control, maybe they had schools for the young kids, maybe they had some health care to take care of the old or infirm. Whatever was happening, he was dominant over the situation, not over the woman. And you'll see that even going back to Adam and Eve. When God gave Adam the dominion of the world, Eve was not there. Eve was in his rib. Eve had not been created from his rib yet. So no, she is not a part of that contract that you will dominate, that you will cultivate, that you will care for. She is meant to come out and help him as he dominates the land and dominates and cares for us and cultivates. But what happens almost immediately when sin comes into play, and we see this with one of the sons of Cain, that he starts dominating women. He starts having 2 wives. He starts making the laws. Well, I killed a man, and therefore, since God forgave Cain, I can be forgiven 7 times more. Again, men creating religions, men creating rules. God gives a little, they give a lot. And so you do not see Boaz dominating Ruth here. He is nurturing, he is sharing, he is keeping her safe, he is using loving kindness, he's not trying to put the moves on. And again, the idea that had she gone to another household, she might find herself in more dire straits with someone saying, well, if you want barley, honey, I got something you can do for that. Very possible could have happened. She could have been in very dangerous places. But here, she's under the safety of Boaz. And here's an interesting thing. Boaz is a type of Christ. Ruth is also a type of the believer, that we can be safe with Christ. When the world says women are not safe with men, they're like saying that the church is not safe with Christ. And we need to make sure, men, that we keep our women safe. But women also have to remember that they are to humble themselves under our dominion of the situation. Join us in our dominion. I think we'll see by the end of this, I think that she gets elevated up to where I could see him relying on her as a second in command. It doesn't say that here, but I could see him giving her responsibility. You go in and check on the security. You go in and check on the hospital. You go in and check on how the schooling's going. Go with this person and go into town and get us a good price for the barley or the wheat or the corn. I don't think he'd just marry her, someone of this caliber of woman, and just set her on the side to be some sort of plaything every night when he gets home from hard work. I think he utilizes the strength of her character in running that household for God. So I don't want to rush through this book so quickly. So tomorrow I'll go back and do 3 and 4. But look at it, glean from it. We get away from the feminism and from the pornography, from our sexual appetites that tend to destroy our minds. Clear your mind up, almost as if this should almost be a poetry book, when you come to it with just a clear mind and a grid work and just look at it and see what it says about these relationships. These relationships are very important. So we'll see what she's doing tomorrow. We'll see what he does tomorrow to redeem her. But right now, just to state, let's look at the beauty of the relationship between this one man and this one woman, and see that also, that we have a husband we can trust. We have a husband we need to submit to his purpose and not our own. Thank you.